Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor came out about 6 months ago. We both kind of stumbled into it in the last couple weeks. It is the follow-up, the continuation of the Cal Kestis story from Jedi Fallen Order, which I was kind of going through Star Wars games, probably top 5 Star Wars game for me. Just, I loved Fallen Order.
Yeah, and I also really love that game, even though I'm not a Star Wars fan. It was my favorite game of 2019. I think I actually liked it more than Resident Evil 2 at the time. Might flip those now, but I really loved Fallen Order at the time. Yeah.
You've talked a lot about Resident Evil 2, and I have never heard you mention Fallen Order until this game. You started playing this game, but
sure,
we're a little late to it. But I was kind of mixed on this game, so I want to kind of start with what I think this game is bookended really well. I think the beginning is very strong. And I think the ending is very strong. Mm-hmm. But, like, not even, like, the middle. Like, after the first 2 hours and until, like, the last 4 or 5 hours, there's kind of this, like, 8-hour chunk in the middle that just kind of slowed down. So I want to start with the beginning, what I really liked with the beginning. So you start on Coruscant, which is always a very cool Star Wars place to go just because it is this huge future city type look. It's very cool. One of the things that I greatly appreciate this game that I wish more sequels did, and I feel like we're slowly getting to the point where sequels stop doing this, is you still are just as powerful as you were at the end of the last game.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I like the whole time we're going through Coruscant, I'm like, how are we going to depower Cal so I can learn Force Push again? But I think with this one, they did a really good job of starting Cal where he was at the end of the first game and kind of just expanding those powers out a little bit. You get a little bit stronger force powers. You get a little bit different ones. You kind of increase them a little bit as you go. But you have that baseline that you ended Fallen Order with.
It's interesting because I agree mechanically. Like that's the baseline. You like you said, we start at the baseline of the end of Fallen Order. But I felt like they did like a weird story reset. And I know we talked a little about this offline that you enjoyed the story reset, but this is actually my big problem with it is because yes, mechanically Cal is, but they did this weird reset where like all of the buddies that you met at the first game have all gone and separated. And like the whole first game built to meeting all your buddies. And it's like, we're going to go on buddy adventures. And then Survivor starts with like, all your buddies have since left. It's like, we never got to see them buddies. And now new buddies. It's like, our old buddies were just fine. It's like, and then the whole game is collecting your old buddies. It's like, I already did that in the last game.
Yeah, I do think, and I think, I don't remember the exact time span, but there's a couple years have gone by since Fallen Order to the start of this. So you do have that time skip there. And I think that was a bit abrasive where you're like, because you do start on Coruscant, you're just like, oh yeah, we're going and I've got my crew with you. And you're like, all right, let's go. Wait a minute. This isn't my crew. Who are these people? What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, and then light spoilers for the opening, they're dispatched quite quickly, so you don't really
Many of them don't matter after the first 2 hours.
Yeah, and it felt like they didn't matter, and then they definitely did not matter. So yeah, I felt it was like weird, like mechanically it did feel like it was really important to the team, like we're going to mechanically include this, but like we're going to kind of do another story reset, for which I was not a huge fan of.
Yeah. One of the things as a Star Wars fan that the middle of this kind of delves into, and I think this is where a lot of the story hiccups start happening, is this is a game based a lot about the High Republic. So if you're not deep in the Star Wars side stuff...
A.K.A. Doug.
High Republic was, I think 2021, was Lucasfilm's push of like, we kind of just need a hard reset on some Star Wars stuff. So we're going to go back several hundred years to the glory days when the Jedi were this magnificent peacekeeping force that was intertwined with this very beloved government, and everything is just as peaceful and as, you know, as just, it's paradise in the Republic at the time of the High Republic. Huge book series. I've read a couple of them. They've got a TV show coming out in the next year or so that's going to be based around High Republic. So lots of High Republic push the last couple of years. So this game delves into that. Basically, one of the kind of key things that happens here is you find some stuff, you find some weirdly preserved things from the High Republic that impact what you're doing, and you basically start discovering more and more about the High Republic as you're going. And it's just used in this very weird way that kind of got to me, where it's like Respawn knew about the High Republic, but they didn't get all the details.
I learned nothing about the High Republic. I learned that the High Republic had Jedis and they had robots and they had some more Jedi temples, but like I I feel like you have this vast knowledge of what makes the High Republic interesting and unique, and none of that comes through in the game. And maybe
It
I'm
does
wrong.
not.
Maybe
It does not.
Okay, I didn't miss a log. Okay, because I actually remember I was like reading the logs. It's like, okay, I'm going to learn about this High Republic stuff because the Jedi Fallen Order, Ancient Society stuff was pretty cool. Not mentioned.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to learn about this High Republic. Okay, like what makes that setting unique and interesting? And like there was like nothing. It seemed like it. I couldn't even tell you what made it unique, except their robots looked a little different. For real, like that was like my big takeaway.
And I believe you, because that's literally what
Yeah.
it is. It's like the Jedi dressed a little differently and the robots look different, and I think it was time when people were exploring, and that's
Yes.
about all you really get from this.
Yeah.
It hints at other things. You go to a shattered moon, and one of the things from the High Republic books is the way that some planets and things got destroyed through these big hyperspace disasters that happened at the time. There is literally a 1.5, maybe 2 or 3 paragraph log that explains like this entire event that like there are novels on novels written about.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point it's like, oh yeah, it turns out like a lot of the High Republic was destroyed by this like weird outlaw group, and literally they put the name of the group in parentheses in the subtitle, but nobody says the name of it when they're discussing this discovery they made. And it's like, no, that's like, that would be like now going like, oh yeah, the Jedi fought this like really evil dark group, and then in parentheses it says Sith. It's just like,
yeah.
It just, I played through this game with this constant feeling of like, this was like forced on them, where it was like, we wanted to go more into, I believe it was the Zepho from the first game, was the ancient race that you were kind of investigating in the first game. We wanted to delve more into that we created and we made for this series, and somebody at Lucasfilm was like, nah, hold your horses here. We can't have 2 crazy ancient civilizations going at the same time. Let's High Republic this stuff, and then just force that in there.
Yeah, and it felt like all the unique things, because I was like asking you questions like, okay, what's cool about the High Republic? It's like, it's just not in the game. I was like, was this High Republic stuff even established when they were told to put whatever happened to get into the game? It's like, were these cool things even established at that point? Or is there just something called a shattered moon? It's like, hey, you guys should probably put a shattered moon in there, but when we'll figure it out after the fact.
Yeah. And I think we while we were talking about this, I looked at timeline. So the first High Republic book came out January 2021. This game obviously came out this year, but probably started development close to the release of Fallen Order in 2019. So this game probably had some things going for it before High Republic came around. So I'd be very curious to know some of the background on that. But that's a whole nother, like, we're getting into the weeds a little bit here too much, I think.
Yeah, but it's still weird because there's shows like Ahsoka and stuff that are out currently that it's like, you probably could have figured out a way to tie into that stuff that's going on right now, and you didn't. High
Republic is going on right now. Like phase 3 of the books come out very quickly. Now again, millions of people watching Ahsoka, not millions of people reading these books.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, the funny, it's like as we're getting in the weeds on this stuff, it's like I felt with Fallen Order, you didn't need to get in the weeds with any of this stuff.
No, you didn't.
And that's like the huge misstep I feel like this whole story makes. It's like, me as not a Star Wars fan still could get into the Star Wars fun of it, and then this one's like, not if you didn't read the book.
But
and there's two. Sorry. Yeah, keep going.
I think that's the thing here, is that like me having read the books, it's like, no, you didn't go into this enough. Like, there are some pieces you could have gone into this. There are characters we could have referenced. There are more we could have done with these events. There's more ways that you could have made the main antagonist connected to the High Republic in more ways than just like, oh yeah, High Republic. And there's ways that you could have, brought more newer people along like you into this to make them feel like they have this other one. So it sits in this weird middle ground where it's like, I read the books, do more. I didn't read the books. I don't know what's going on. Like,
yeah,
you tried to 2 middle lane it, and it just didn't work for anybody.
Yeah, and the thing that's funny is like we're talking all these issues with the story, and like to me, the story isn't even the part that like bugged me the most. I know that's probably the stuff that bugged you the most, but to me, it's just like, yeah.
So for the story, and I think I kind of realized this towards the end, what I kind of slowly started discovering, and I think this made me appreciate the game a little bit more, is this isn't really like a huge epic Star Wars tale like you would get, where it's like, oh, we got to go destroy the Death Star, or the Emperor's come back and we need to stop him. It's, how has Cal evolved from point A to point B in this game? And that's really where I see the story more, is how does Cal handle this mindset of being one of the last Jedi? How does Cal handle this mindset of, seeing what the High Republic was like and seeing the collapse of the High Republic, and now how that's kind of mirrored in what's happening in the current Republic? And it got a lot more personal for Cal towards the end of the game, which again, like I said, bookended by very, very good good parts. And I think that personal thing, again, like the main conflict of this ends up being like an interpersonal conflict between Cal and one other person.
Yeah.
Ends up being kind of the meat of this story by the end of it. And it becomes so much more of a personal story to him, and that evolution that he goes through, and like even like there's some tempted by the dark side stuff in this. And I really feel like those things end up making me feel better about the story than I did about the High Republic-ness of it, and these big grand things that I feel like the game wanted me to get connected to. It really pointed out more of Cal than anything else.
But I see what you're saying, but I think that games that are character studies of characters need to have I don't want to say, I'm trying not to like paint this game like too broad a brush, but I didn't feel like the characters were studied well enough to be a character study game. Like, and I get Cal,
no,
but like agree. To me, like none of the cast, like when I'm thinking like character study games, Uncharted 4 is not a fair example, but like smaller games like Life is Strange and all that sort of thing, like you have a cast of characters that are all interesting, and you're seeing like their lives and that sort of thing. But like I didn't get that from this game. Even the main character Cal, which I do understand, like high level, yeah, that's interesting, but in the moment to moment stuff of characters interacting with one another, it's not good enough to be in league with other character study like games.
And I agree. And that's what I'm saying, that I don't think it's as good. I think that gave me more of an appreciation for it, because I was constantly like, oh, where are we going with this? Like High Republic. Okay, cool. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into all these different things. Nope. Okay. Ooh, but what about this? We're slowly moving into this territory. Is it going to be? Nope. It's just all Cal. And I think that was what they were trying to go for, was that character study game. And I think the fact that I didn't even kind of catch on to that, I feel like, until maybe like 3 hours left in the game, points out that might not have been the thing for them.
And I think both those bookends, I think this would be a good way to get into the gameplay stuff. That's to me when it's most like the Jedi Fallen Order stuff, because it's tighter, both gameplay, both like mechanically wise, but like story wise, it's tight. It's a lot more focused, both at the beginning and at the end. It's so much more focused. And then this sort of like middle part of the game that I guess we'll start talking about just feels very not Fallen Order. It feels like it kind of like lost focus of what made Fallen Order great.
Yes.
And so you end up with this weird, and you can figure out how to frame this. Good luck being podcast lead on this one. Whatever the middle part of this game is, because it's not really Fallen Order, it just feels like a weird mash of like a few different inspirations that like is not as tight as the original game. In weird ways, it feels like Fallen Order is actually, it feels like the reversed sequel wise, as far as like this game was too big, so we tightened it up for Fallen Order, but it's reversed, where it's like it was a really tight, smaller game that I think was really strong, and maybe it's just that sort of sequel, we got to go bigger-ness that just made everything weaker. I think many aspects much weaker. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. And I think you're being generous when you say middle chunk, because this is the bulk of the game.
Yeah.
Right. The beginning we're talking about is maybe 2 hours. The ending we're talking about is maybe 3 or 4 hours. And I think it was maybe 18 or 19 hours for me to finish this thing. So I mean, we're talking the bulk. We're talking a 10-hour chunk here. So middle is being generous. So you hit a couple points there that I think are important to kind of break out. First of all, I think it changes a little bit of just scale almost, because it's bigger, but you spend probably 70% of your time on the same planet.
Yeah.
And Fallen Order did a lot of planet jumping. And again, beginning, you're on Coruscant for maybe hour and a half. Yeah. The end, you jump to 3 or 4 different new places in those last 3 or 4 hours. But that 10-hour chunk, you're mainly in 2 or 3 planets for 10 hours.
Very similar. There's like, they're like vaguely different types of deserts. Like your main hub is kind of like in a vegetated desert, and then you move to a sandy desert, and like that is tens of hours of gameplay, and it's just like the environments to me, I think I was just describing this to you, like everything feels like 1.25% everything feels like 25% bigger than the first game. So it just feels 25% longer to walk anywhere. Even like a like small puzzle room, it's just a larger environment for some reason. So you just spend a lot of time just like walking around large environments, and they're not large as in like awe-inspiring. I think it almost feels like they kind of looked at Xenoblade but didn't get it quite right, because I feel like Xenoblade gives the illusion of big environments, or like at least when you're walking in a big environment of something like Xenoblade, it feels like epic and massive and this sort of like we're going on a big adventure. In this one, it just felt like a little annoying to walk around all the time, was my perception of how big these things were. They didn't feel big and majestic. They just felt too big to wander around in. And it didn't feel like, and so you have big environments, so now you have to put things in it, and they put in these like side quests with like the worst hooks on the planet of like, did you do any of this? Did you do any of the side quests? I think I did like one or two at the beginning, but then like I lost my reader thing in this hole. I'm like, that's too bad. Sorry. Moving on to the main quest.
I think I got a couple prompts at like the main bar, and I was just like, no, I'm not gonna be doing that for you, bud. Nope.
Yeah, they set the whole game around this hub planet that you go back to multiple times. They have a cool bar where all these cool characters hang out.
The bar is kind of cool. The bar is cool, but they give you a bunch of side quests that like I just never did. And maybe that's on me that like this is cool stuff maybe I should have looked at, but it just felt like if that bar, all those things were aligned to the, towards the main quest, I would have done more stuff, but it just seems like just totally random side stuff they were asking you to do. And then, on top of all that, the gameplay is a lot sloppier. It feels sloppier. Dude, I don't know, man. I put this game on hard to begin with, and after finishing Armored Core 6, after nearly finishing Wolong, I died more in this game than I did in those games, because I think the combat it's not tight enough to do the harder difficulties. I played on normal straight through, so that could be.
It's different, but I just feel like this whole game, like both the combat, the jumping mechanics, everything was just, it's not tight. It feels weird.
Yeah, I'll agree to, or disagree. Not agree to disagree. I'll disagree with that. I think, and again, I think I played this kind of the wrong way. So the game has like 5 stances that you can go through, and I did my one saber for probably 95% of the game, and I didn't touch the other ones. I was like, oh, I'll try this. Nope, don't like that as much. Okay, back to one saber, and literally played 95% of the game that way. So I think it was just kind of that fit with me, and that was what I liked, so I stuck with it. So
yeah, but I tried doing all the different saber stances, and there was one that was like, oh, this one's just clearly the best one. I just kind of stuck with that. I'm not going to spoil which one it was, but I also did the same thing. I think I just used a different saber stance. Like, this is clearly the one I'm going to use, and kind of swap out some secondary ones. But I don't know. It didn't feel very tight to me, especially again, playing on hard. I was just like, the things that the combat is asking of me are interesting because the fights are interesting. I think some of the combos the enemies throw at you are interesting, but just the way that the fighting works, it's like your character's like almost like too slow to react to the cool fight that I want you to get involved with. So sometimes I was getting hit. I was like, I don't know why I got hit there. And I think on normal, and I did eventually swap to normal, where I was like, taking a few hits was okay, but I was like, I feel like I should be good enough for this game where I shouldn't be taking this many hits, period. It almost felt like a Yakuza game, where like, I feel like in Yakuza games, you can get really hit around even if you're good at the game. I was feeling that kind of like, I don't know why I'm getting hit, because I feel like I'm blocking. I feel like I'm doing that. So, yeah.
Huh. I pretty much breezed through it. I didn't have any problem with it. I think there was like one. There's like one boss fight that I had to do a few times, but other than that, I kind of breezed through it. It felt good to me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I will say one other kind of thing with that middle chunk we were talking about. There's a style shift almost that I don't like. So a lot of, again, beginning and ending is these linear go get the thing, like reach the end of the level, like we're trying to get to this point inside this base, inside this planet, inside this cave, whatever it might be. The middle is. It almost like takes like an Uncharted direction, because it's like this High Republic stuff of like, go find the things. Yeah. And it just, is it 4? I think you have to find, it's like 4. It's 3 or 4.
It's 3. It's 3. I know what you're talking about though. Yeah. The compass. I think we'd safely say they're called compasses. Yeah,
the compasses. You have to find 3 or 4 of these compasses that have like a star chart in them. And it just gets to the point where it's just like, it's such a slog, like, okay, one more compass. Okay, go to this place and find the compass. You got to find one more compass. And again, I think that High Republic hook not being there, it just kind of made this exploration gameplay on these planets that were kind of in already, that you're spending too much time on. It just that whole middle part just bogged that middle part down even further, I think.
I've got a really dumb question. Were the natural environments to you Star Warsy? Because I never felt like for large parts of the game, I didn't feel like I was in a Star Wars game, because I'm thinking even like watching some of the recent shows and movies, they're usually like there's like dense areas with like a lot of characters kind of moving around and stuff, but like most of the stuff is kind of like in the wilderness in what feels like New Mexico, like it's kind of a weirder New Mexico. But so like large portions of games didn't even feel Star Warsy to me, but I don't know if that's me being an ignorant Star Wars person. This is actually what Star Wars is always like. But that's just kind of what I felt.
I mean, it was a little bit of like a we're in hiding on this planet type playing. The one planet specifically, they're like, no, this is part of this hidden thing. Like we're trying to hide from the Emperor. So some of that I see, but I do kind of feel like that environment's there. The same thing. I think that's where I get that Uncharted vibe. Is it just feels like I'm going through like a forest. I'm going through a desert. I'm going through generic landscape to go through it. I think there's one or two planets that I do think feel very, very Star Warsy. Again, I don't want to necessarily spoil what that is, but there's one or two planets that feel like, okay, no, this is a Star Wars planet. This is what it should be. There's a slightly different feel to like the vegetation. There's a slightly different feel to the atmosphere, whereas kind of your main hub one is just like, no. Oh yeah, I'm in a Star Wars game. Cool.
Like I have to be like reminded I'm in a Star Wars game where like, but again, in those first and end parts are very, very Star Warsy of stuff. Even like new and old Star Wars. I think it does some really cool stuff with I think the last game kind of hinted at kind of like episode 3 end stuff of enemies and that sort of thing. In this game, I think dove a little bit deeper into like utilizing, because we're in like kind of straddling two generations of Star Wars, being able to pull from both. I thought that was really, really cool when it did it. And then most of the time it wasn't doing that.
There are a few parts where you do see like early battle droids mixed with stormtroopers, mixed with some other deeper cuts, so to speak, of Star Wars enemy. It's such a weird game to me, because there are moments in this game where I loved it, and then there's moments where I'm kind of bored and it's whatever. So I don't know. It was not what I was expecting going into it. I was expecting to love this game. I was expecting, like, I love Cal as a character. Cal is a great character. Again, loved Fallen Order. Love this time period. I think it's a very interesting time period to explore. I love the High Republic stuff, so I was really pumped when I heard they were going that direction. It just kind of felt like everything was just like that half step below my expectations all the way through.
Yeah.
My expectations were like 10 out of 10, and everything just felt like, lower it, not quite there, no.
And it almost hurts even worse when it does kind of hit those 10 out of 10 moments in little bits and pieces, and that's when it feels the most like a Fallen Order game and not Survivor.
Yeah. But we are Workforce Gaming. We try and get new videos up every Monday. Subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below. We'll see you later.
Bye.